The year was 1944. Base Outpost 9 wasn't even a base. It was a series of jagged foxholes and two half-destroyed stone cellars on a ridge overlooking a narrow Belgian road. The trees were frozen solid, their branches encased in ice that shattered like glass when a shell landed nearby. The sky was a permanent, suffocating gray, and the snow had grown so deep it was no longer a surface. It was a trap. Private First Class Leo Quiet Miller was a lint watcher. His job was to sit in the forwardmost foxhole, a hole in the frozen earth lined with pine needles and stolen burlap sacks, and watch the white void for the slightest movement. The frozen stasis. Life at the ridge was a slow-motion test of the human spirit. Everything was lent slow. The blood moved slow in your veins. The food, a cold tin of rations, had to be tucked under your armpit for an hour just so it wouldn't break your teeth. To move too fast was to sweat, and to sweat was to freeze to death when you stopped. The men spoke in whispers, their breath forming ice crystals on their wool scarves. They lived in a world of shades, the white of the snow, the black of the tree trunks, and the gray of the sky. "Do you think the clock stopped, Leo?" asked a young replacement named Joey, whose feet had turned a ghostly numb white. "It's been Tuesday for 3 days." Leo didn't turn his head. He kept his eyes on the tree line. "Time doesn't move in the snow, kid. It just piles up. Don't look at the clock. Look at the shadows." The shadow in the mist on the 7th day of the fog, the silence changed. It wasn't a sound at first. It was a vibration in the soles of their boots. The lent pace of the siege was ending. Through the mist, the heavy, rhythmic clank-clink of tank treads began to echo. The Germans were moving their heavy armor under the cover of the whiteout. If the ridge fell, the entire division in the valley below would be cut off and slaughtered in their sleep. "We can't see them to aim the artillery," the sergeant hissed from the cellar, "and the radio line to the big guns is dead. Someone's got to go to the point and signal." The lantern in the snow. The point was a lone exposed rock 200 yards ahead of the lines. Leo grabbed a signal lantern and a handful of colored filters. He didn't run. He moved with the slow, deliberate grace of a hunter. If he moved too fast, the crunch of the snow would give him away. He crawled on his belly, his hands turning purple as he dragged himself through the drifts. He could hear the enemy tanks. No, they were so close he could smell the hot oil and the exhaust. He reached the point. He took a deep breath of the freezing air, stood up in the middle of the white void, and lit the lantern. He didn't just flash it. He moved it in the slow, rhythmic lent arcs of the emergency coordinate code. Left, right, hold. Left. He was a perfect target. A tiny orange flame in a world of white. A German sniper's bullet whined past his ear, clipping his helmet, but Leo didn't flinch. He finished the code. The iron rain seconds later, the sky above the ridge didn't just break. It shattered. The American 105mm howitzers, guided by Leo's light, unleashed a wall of fire. The shells whistled over Leo's head and slammed into the hidden tank column with the force of a falling mountain. The orange glow of the burning tanks lit up the forest, turning the snow into a sea of flickering crimson. The return to the earth, Leo tumbled back into his foxhole as the counterfire began to chew up the rocks around him. He lay there, his heart thumping against the frozen mud, watching the smoke rise into the gray sky. When the sun finally broke through the clouds the next morning, the first time in a week, it revealed a graveyard of iron in the valley below. The ridge had held. The sergeant crawled over to Leo's hole. He didn't give him a medal then. He just handed him a canteen of water that had been heated over a small, hidden stove. It was the first warm thing Leo had touched in 10 days. "You were a bright light out there, Miller," the sergeant said, his voice cracking. Leo took a slow, painful sip of the water. He looked at his hands, which were still shaking from the cold and the adrenaline. The snow wanted us to stay quiet, Sarge, Leo whispered. I just figured it was time we made some noise. The war in the Ardennes would eventually end, and the snow would melt, revealing the scars on the trees and the earth. But the men of Outpost 9 never forgot the Lent Watcher, who stood up in the dark and the cold to show the iron rain where to fall.